What's going on YouTube? Welcome to the basics of painting portraits in oil paint. The most important thing to mention in the beginning is your stance. And I made a video about this a while ago. By stance, I mean how you approach the canvas. So in this stream, I decided I would have a handheld palette and you would watch how I mix because this is an active thing. I don't want this to be kind of like just sitting and doodling away kind of thing. Do note, those of you that are watching this as a pre-recorded video, this was streamed live. So this is all going to be in real time. Hey Stephanie, and the chat is on the right hand side, the bottom right hand side. Reference is on the top right. One important thing to mention now that we're about to get started with this is that for the basics, you want to, as much as you can, paint from life. Paint from a live model as much as you can. I don't have the luxury of having a live model here with me, so I am painting from the reference. The reference is a little bit smaller as to mimic what the model's head would look like if she was kind of like standing or sitting in front of me. If I hold a thumb like that, the model's head is usually like an inch or so if the model is on a model stand. Relative to me. So the big shapes are very important. Figure out your placement. Top and the bottom of the canvas. I'm drawing with, this is just raw umber. It's either raw umber or burnt umber. I can't remember which one. But your drawing color should be something that you can easily paint into. Hey Monique. So something you can easily paint into. And there we go. Now a little simple placement. Now the model's head is raised slightly. So we're departing from the Rembrandt studies for a little bit, and we're going to do some more original stuff, meaning from my own photo reference bank. So this is a reference that I took a long time ago. Notice how I like to stand back and mix. Hopefully on the camera you can at least see some of how I'm mixing. In theory, I've tested it out. It should look okay. It's not going to be perfect, but anyway. So now we have an idea of the head. So for the basics, hey Christine. For the basics, I typically like to have a head about the size of my hand. You see that? This is an 8x10 canvas. I do aim to sell these paintings in the future. By the way, this is primed. This is a linen canvas that I primed with lead. So this is actually my first time working on a lead primer. So this is going to be a fun thing to develop. Hey Janice. Now I'm going in with the outside shape, working with the exterior shapes. Now the way that you thin your paint out for the drawing color, for those of us that are beginners out there, the way you thin out your paint is going to be a touch of mineral spirits and maybe dab it on the paper towel. You see my paper towel is right here, and it's clipped on by my palette cup. Hey Nilu. Alright, so I don't know if this is showing up on the chat. It looks like it is. Alright. So that's the reality of streaming live. Hey Nilu. My internet's not that bad, but it's not like professional for TV broadcasting or something like that, so I'm going to lose internet connection once in a while. So apologize for that. Now we're back. Hello Nilu, thanks for joining. Now that I have the outside shape relatively intact, blocked in, not perfectly, but blocked in well enough, now I'm going to go in with the axes of the eyes. I'm going to take some of the mineral spirits off the brush. I'm using a bristle brush for those of us beginners out there. Invest in your materials. Starting out with cheaper materials it's an attractive thing because we don't know how much time we want to put into it. But let's assume that we love it. Let's assume that we're going to love oil painting for the rest of our lives. Let's invest in our materials. You actually end up spending more money with cheaper materials because you have to replace them so often. So the brushes that I'm using are linked in the description box of this video. So now I'm going in and just mapping out kind of suggestions for where the features are going to fit. using a little bit of a triangle here for the nose. I see that there's some of the bottom plane of the nose. So the bottom of the nose is showing, so that means that the model's head is lifted relative to us. You see that right there? So lifted relative to us. Hey, GT, oh, thank you. Now on the palette you can see these colors, we're not going to get into color yet, but we'll get into color eventually. They are typed out for you. I just made sure to double check it. They're typed out for you in the description box of this video. So the nose relative to the head is going to give you a pretty good idea of the perspective. Because the model is in perspective relative to us, she's looking up relative to us. The outside shape was more important to lock into, and then a guesstimation for the features of the face, and then figuring out the placement of the nose. Now I'm drawing in kind of in an analytical sense, just so I can have a little bit more control when I get into the shadow shapes. So the eye is looking up relative to us, but we're going to keep that just like that, a simple triangle. And the hair is going to go down somewhat like that. And now we've got the basic idea for where the head is going to fit. It looks rather cartoony, but that's okay because we want to have something that we can work with, not something that we get tied into too early and then are afraid to make adjustments. One adjustment I'll make right away is that the nose needs to be a little bit lower relative to the eyes. And now I'm going to just go and start to put in the dark shadow shapes with the drawing color. So with the drawing color, this is going to give me the ability to, as you see, this is rather warm, so I think it's actually burnt umber. So what I'm going to do is just fill in the darks, and then from the darks we're going to go into more specifics here. So this is giving me now a value, and you want to work with shapes of value. So this is telling me, well, maybe that shape right there, it seemed okay at first, but you have a little bit of room to lower the forehead if you have to. And in here, I definitely have to. So we're lowering a little bit relative to the structure of the face. So getting this as precise as I possibly can. Notice how frequently I stand back. This is a very important thing, to be able to stand back while you're working. This gives us a careful angle here. We're not throwing down paint quite as rapidly as we did with the last one, because the last one was more kind of like a, like an experiment and letting loose. So this is more for those of us that are beginners out there. I'm taking a lot more time with the preliminary steps, being very cautious as I move around, as careful as I can to avoid things like that. So like I said, this is a live stream, so things can happen. So I'm gonna just secure that there. So it is a very active thing. Oil painting, canvas itself can try to fall off and things like that can happen, but it's okay. Okay, so now we're guesstimating where the hair is going to fit. These light and dark patterns are so essential in the placement of everything. This becomes a little bit more straight. Now we're in a really good position here, and I'm thinking a lot of John William Waterhouse with this one. This model has a pre-Raphaelite kind of look to her, meaning she has like that kind of graceful symmetry to her face. She has a red hair. She has, well, it's not natural red hair, but let's just say she has red hair. That's all we need for that pre-Raphaelite kind of look. Those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, pre-Raphaelites are, in particular, I'm thinking of John William Waterhouse, but just look them up. They are really, really inspirational group of painters in art history. Let's see. I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna block it because that looks like advertisement. So any advertisement on here I will block. I'll forgive you. I'm not gonna ban you, but Typically, I don't want any advertisements other than what YouTube usually does to you anyway. Alright, now we've got the placement of the head guesstimated here. We can tell that the model is looking up. A few last little adjustments, and then we're going to get into some colors. Okay. Alright, so now we can get into some colors here. So what I'm going to do is start off with the darks first, and then I'm going to work my way into the rest of the colors. So I'm going to start with the background dark first, and I'm going to mix a very simple gray. So as you can see here on my palette, I'm using Ultramarine Blue, Viridian. By the way, the color palette laid out here for you is Titanium White, Lead White, Cadmium Yellow, Cadmium Orange, Cadmium Red, Alizarin Crimson, Viridian, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Turquoise, and Dioxazine Purple. It consists of the primaries, your red, yellow, and blue, and secondaries, your orange, your green, and your purple, which I will from time to time call violet. So I'm adding a little bit of cadmium yellow to it, makes it kind of green. I'm going to kill that yellow off with alizarin permanent and a little bit more ultramarine blue. What I want is a greenish gray. I'm going to add a little bit of medium to let the paint flow a little bit. That was Neo-Megilp medium. That's going to be our first little color right there for the background. And of course, those of you that work with French easels, they're really good easels, but you have to get this knob locked in there perfectly. So I'm going to try this again. Hopefully this knob doesn't come off. Yeah, let's keep it at that. And that's a good thing. That means that we're putting a lot of force into the brush, adding a little more white. So I'll use titanium white and lead white these days. And I use lead white for more of the subtle value transition. Now, not that green. Let's go into some blue now as we get to the top. So I'm going to add a little bit of phthalo turquoise into it. Now this is going to get a little bit lighter. Ultramarine blue, and this is a good beginning. And I'm going to mix right into the raw umber, mainly because I'm just trying to get rid of it. I don't want to use raw umber for my skin colors or anything like that, or burnt umber. I'm just trying to use pure color as much as I can. So that's another important thing for those of you that are beginners, that are watching this, that are interested in getting into portrait painting or getting better at portrait painting. It is important to know how to mix color. Don't just get something out of the tube and just use that just because it's the easiest thing to do. Learn to actually mix color. But like I said, sometimes if you just want to get by with just mixing 2 or 3 colors together, then you can do that. But just try to experiment with color a little bit more. So now we're covering the background a little bit first. We're going to go now into the darks for the hair. I'm going to thin out the paint. Well, actually, I'm just going to clean out the brush, as you can see here, with the odorless mineral spirits. Now we're going to go with the dark. So a dark for the hair, I'm going to go with Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Dioxazine Purple, and we're going to go in basically one brush stroke at a time. Get these planes to work. A little bit of Viridian back here. So locking down all of the shapes around the hair, and then we're going to get into the shadows for the face. Then we're going to subdivide the shapes for the face. But we want some stuff to relate to, some colors to relate to. So again, for those of us beginners out there that are just getting into portrait painting, or maybe have less than like a year of experience with portrait painting, pay very close attention to how I move about the canvas. So that's why I have this camera set up the way I do, because for years and years and years I would upload videos where all you would see is a hand doing a painting, and I think that it's a good idea to now have an idea of how painters move about the canvas, the energy that goes into it, the freedom that goes into it, sometimes the frustration. It's important to see all of it as clearly as you can. And of course, you can see the palette somewhat as I'm mixing it here, but it is on a different camera, so don't expect the colors to be exactly the same. A little bit of Cadmium Red on here. Notice how I mix. I am very, very interested in a dynamic approach to painting, as taught to my teachers by Nelson Shanks. Nelson Shanks was the teacher of my teachers. I always refer to him. He's I call him my superhero in painting, because he really was one of the best painters in the 20th century. And he paved the way for the usage of color in realist art, not just value alone. So I'm adding more of the Phthalo Turquoise and Alizarin. So, any questions from anyone watching this live? Is anyone even watching this live? Or is it just me, myself, and I? I don't quite know. I don't have the analytics on my computer at the moment. Anybody here? Now we're putting a little bit of shape for the chin. Walking around very comfortably. Nice and easy. Covering some of the darks down here. And we'll cover the same back here. And now all of a sudden we've got hair. Hey Prudence. Oh good, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Yeah, don't be scared to ask questions, everyone. It's just any like advertisement or like blatant like bullying or you know, just things that are not for the live streams. I will be you know, taking care of that. Indita, okay, good. We got 45 people. Hey Art Boy. Hey Mandy Clements. Monique, multitasking, no problem. Hey Brandon. Good, good. I'm glad you're all here. Alright, so now let's mix this shadow shape. I'm going to relate this shape to that shape. And it's got a little bit more of a green, so I can actually just mix right into the green that I had in here. A little bit of... You see why I like to have a bigger palette. I mean, look at how I can just move around. And it's so freeing, and I can just use so much paint. This is really the life right here, being able to use a palette like this. How to block in those details, we'll get there. The short answer to that is big shapes into little shapes. Or if you want to go little shapes into big shapes, do so with a very fine drawing. But what we're doing is we're going big shapes into little shapes. And we're discovering the drawing as we go. So this shadow shape relative to that, it should be a tad green, but it should be slightly warmer than that. So I'm going to increase the warmth a little bit and see how I can just cross right into that puddle over there. And that's going to give me a little bit of a warmer color. And don't worry, we'll get into the small detail stuff. We're just paving the way so that we can do that. We'll darken down here. The key to this all, the emphasis is in light and shadow. Those of us beginners out there, light and shadow. Light and shadow is the #1 thing. Light and shadow. If you can get light and shadow and a few midtones, you're in a good place. So let's see. Haley Hody, Dita Art. Yes, I'm using mainly Gamsol. I used a little bit of Neo-Megilp, which is on this right over here, up there, but mainly, yeah, just Gamsol to thin it out. Well, thanks for watching from the Netherlands. Hey Nilu, oh thank you, I'm glad you liked the backlit painting. Hey Sean, oh thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed my videos. Add a little bit of warmth, see how I'm mixing right into this puddle. For the shadow shape under here, it's a little bit warmer. Now, as soon as we start to block in light and shadow, right away we're going to deal with the tough, difficult thing of lightness. And if you can get the light and shadow shapes as well described as possible, the lightness happens automatically with light and shadow. However, do not dread the likeness. Don't feel like you have to chase it. It will come to you. Likeness is nothing more than the confirmation of an accurate drawing. As my teacher John DeMartin would say, I will tell you, don't spend your time, don't waste your time chasing the likeness, because 9 out of 10 our paintings, for me even more, our paintings are not meant to be literal descriptions. They're not meant to be a one-on-one interpretation of the model. They are meant to be works of art. They're meant to be paintings. They're not meant to be photographs. Let's see. Hey, Son. Okay, let's see. Angela, what's up? Hey, Angela. Oh, cool. Yeah, I am live streaming at the moment. Let's see. Prudence, do you start with a harder brush in the early process? I'm using bristles for most of the entire painting, actually. I will switch to sables when I'm in the like fine detail stuff, but mainly I start with bristles. I keep it entirely bristles. I use the same type of brush. I'm not sponsored by this company, but I wish I was. Silver Brush Grand Prix are my favorites, the filberts. And then when I get into details, I also use silver brush. These are pure red sables. Alright, now we're going to delineate some structure for the nose. What do I mean by delineate? I mean refine the shadow shape, the little curves, the angles, all the little nuances. Now at this point it's going to look like a scary demonic monster of some sort, but then we're going to turn it into more of like the human realm. Let's see. Hey Jim, you're in the Netherlands. I'm in Maryland, DC, Virginia area. Ooh, we're Dutch. Awesome. All right, let's start to hone in on these shapes a little bit. Now I'm looking at the distance that the point of the nose here has relative to the, basically like the wall of the side of the face. So that tells me that this point has gone a little too far out that way, but that's okay. It's actually easier to work kind of like bigger and then go in. Now if there's something wrong with that point, that means that there's going to be something wrong with this point, and there is. So this is, my first guesstimation was too low relative to that. So I'm going to go and put the shadow shape underneath of the mouth. And this is a really simple process that involves working with shapes. But this really does imply the drawing learned from doing all those Rembrandt master studies. So those careful Rembrandts, those are what paved the way for this kind of like more freeing approach. So I'm moving just the shadow shape. That's not the lip, that's the shadow underneath of where the lip is gonna go. Hey Luda, what's the most challenging painting you have ever painted and why? I think the most challenging painting used to be a portrait I did of my wife's mom, but no, the one I did last week was the most challenging one I painted. And it's actually sitting back there. It was on a piece of cotton canvas. It was a really fast-paced, expressive Rembrandt. That was the hardest one. It was the hardest because I really tried to capture the essence of Rembrandt in 2 hours or so time, and that was very hard. But it was mainly difficult because of the timing. So now we put the accents back into the mouth. Yes, I know that looks a little bit scary to some, but this is how I'm plotting out where the features are going to go. If you can keep your shapes simple and easy to work with, just like you saw right there. When the time comes to make changes, well, you know the rest. So now we're gonna, or if you don't know the rest, when the time comes to make changes, those changes are simple and easy to manage. Now we're gonna go into a little more refinement for the shadow shapes, and then we're gonna start to throw down some lights, and then we're gonna refine this thing, and then we're gonna finish it. So it is that simple of a process. Hey, PhD nurse, 42 of us here. Yeah, I'm sorry about last time. I don't mean anything against you. It's just it seemed like an ad, so. But I could tell that you were a human and not a robot, so no hard feelings there. So now I'm adding titanium white, cadmium red, and I'm mixing right into that puddle that you see right there. So this is a Turtlewood palette. It is a pretty good sized palette. I don't know where my roller is, but you can see what it is relative to my torso. It's a nice sized palette for me to work with. Much better than the smaller palette that you see on the side. That's just crap. I really don't like to have a little tiny palette on the edge of the canvas there. It disturbs me because I'm not able to mix properly. So now we have our first little skin tone, our first little guesstimation for the skin tone. That right there is too pink, so that meant that there was too much cadmium red. So now what I'm going to do is add, you see that right there, a little bit of Viridian into that mixture, a little bit of Viridian in there, and it will kill off some of the red. Hey Brandon, how long do these sorts of paintings usually take you? This one I should be able to do in about 2 hours to 3 hours. I don't know if I have the entire 3 hours, so I'm going to do the best that I can. These sorts of studies don't take me more than 3 hours. But for example, I could start a painting like this and I could keep working on it for weeks. In fact, I start pretty much most of my paintings the same way. I don't differentiate when I start like a quick sketch versus starting a long-term painting. I've got a painting I was working on just yesterday that I started last year, and I started it the same way, and I'm still working on it. I'm still refining it, still adding and subtracting things. So I could work on it for a long time. But I'm trying to get better at these more quick starts. They're a little frightening to me, but what I'm trying to do is I'm basically multitasking. I'm adding form, value, color, perspective, color relationships, all at once. See how I've just changed the value? That's going to be a much lighter tone there. I'm actually going to be doing a painting demonstration live, like a public painting demo in a couple days on like what today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 3 days from now. Yeah, 3 days from now on Saturday, I'm going to be doing a public painting demo for the opening of, or the first day that the instructor show starts at the school where I'm teaching. But I don't have a camera crew, so I can't really film it, and I don't really think anyone's going to attend it. But if you live in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, you're totally welcome to stop by. It's at the Yellow Barn School where I teach. I underemphasize it because I know most of you are not in the area, so it's almost not even worth mentioning that I'll be doing that, but I mentioned it. Okay, so now your question about the shapes. I'm working middle now. I'm working the middle-sized big shapes. Middle-sized big shapes. Not quite the large shapes, not quite the small shapes. And it's going to look rather kind of like robotic. It's going to look a little frightening for a little bit, and then we're going to pick up the pace. So now I'm going to switch brushes here. So I'm going to have a light brush, a middle brush, and a dark brush. So the one in the middle here is now going to become my middle brush, and then I'm going to have a light brush. And we're going to grow the value range right out of the cheekbone area. So I'm adding the same kind of stuff. I'm adding Viridian, and I'm adding Cadmium Red, and Viridian. All of these colors, with the exception of Lead White, are Winsor Newton, either Winsor Newton or Gamblin colors. The reason I say that is they're pretty good colors. In the past, I experimented with like more high-end paints like Old Holland, Rublev, Michael Harding, and I still have a Michael Harding. That's my lead white, because you can't get lead white in Winsor Newton, and you can't get it in Gamblin. You can get the flake white replacement, but that's not going to be the same. But it handles really nicely. Sometimes I'll choose to use the lead white replacement over the real thing. Why would I do that? I would do that because sometimes I don't want my paint to be that thick. I don't want it to be that, or I don't want it to be that opaque. Lead flake white replacement from Gamblin is somewhat in the middle. It's kind of sandwiched in the middle there. Okay. Be very careful with your light and shadow shapes. That right there is a piece of my drawing, and that needs to go. That is not the correct value. So now we are going to switch to the light brush, and I'm going to now charge it up with paint. Lead white, titanium white. Notice I haven't, I mean not lead white, titanium white, cadmium red. Notice how I haven't gotten into the lead yet. Think about it like gears of a car. Lead white is like 5th gear, 6th gear, if you have a 6-speed. And titanium white is like 1st gear up to like, I don't know, like 3rd gear or something like that. Like a manual car is going to accelerate faster in the lower gears, and the titanium white accelerates much faster, meaning it raises the value really fast. So I'm adding a little bit more pink into that. The lead white comes in a tube. Although the lead primer that I used to tone this thing is in a can. A can or a tin, whatever. It's a tin thing. A little bit of light there. And I'm treating the form like a wig maker's block, as a Sargent would have. It's just more efficient to work this way. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to maneuver my way around the edge of the nose. Yep, no problem. Adding a little bit more white there. For all of us beginners out there, notice how frequently I step back. Pretty much with like every time I mix, I step back. Now we're going to switch to the middle brush, and we're going to get some of the shape underneath for the tear bag of the eye. Mixing into the darks, mixing in with the Viridian. And as many of you know, I really enjoy Rembrandt, doing Rembrandt studies. We did so many of them. We're still doing them, and we're going to keep doing those. But definitely, there comes a time where we need to take that information and put it into practice in a way that is going to be a little more original. Now, I'm not too worried about the detail for the eyes. Many of you, how many of you would have went into the eyes already and started to do stuff for the eyes? I know I would have, like not that long ago, but I know that I have to trust myself, trust the process, and know that everything will work out all right. So I'm not going into the eyes just yet. Now we've got some light for the nose. Switching back and forth from the middle tone brush and the light brush. Middle tone brush, light brush, and the dark brush. Okay, so that got a little bit light. Now we're shifting gears. Look how stringy it is. You see that? It's like string cheese, or mozzarella cheese. It is lead white. And I think that lead white might actually be starting to separate. So that's the Micheal Harding lead white. And it's been in the tube for a while. So I'm going to add some mineral spirits to it. Micheal Harding lead white is really good. Lead white. It's very similar to Rublev. Though it's a little more creamy. Rublev is a little more like, it's a little thicker. And this shape can go somewhere over there. This will give us the bottom of the chin, side plane of the orbicularis. Now we're starting to hone our way in towards the specifics of the face. Now we're going to go with a little bit of red, Alizarin Crimson, back to the white. Our first little guesstimation for the lip. Think about the top middle portion of the upper lip relative to the bottom middle portion of the nose. That's our first little guesstimation for that little dark accent there. Gives us the angle of the mouth. I had it a little too angled there, so I'm moving it up slightly. How do I handle those brushes in small spaces like around the eyes? I will likely switch to smaller brushes once I get there. It is possible to do that with the bigger brushes. And the answer is to use the edge of the filbert, as you see right here. That's the edge of the filbert. Or if you have a flat, you can use the flat for that. But I wouldn't use a round for something like that. I mean, I'm sure you can, but I wouldn't use a round. Now a little bit of titanium white, cadmium orange. Mix right into that puddle here. You see I have a little thinking block here, a little thinking cloud, a thought cloud there of my values. Now I'm adding a little bit of light right there for the chin. This is going to give me the top plane of the chin. It turned out to get a little too orange, so I'll kill it off with Viridian and Ultramarine Blue. Add a little bit more light over there. Now we're going to make it a little bit more pink. Now I'm adding Cadmium Red into that. Titanium White. Testing out a portion here. Like testing out a microphone. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing that shape there. And that's a nice bright pink, and we're going to neutralize it a little bit with Phthalo Turquoise. So Phthalo Turquoise, Cadmium Red, and Titanium White. So it gives us a nice and bizarre color that you wouldn't normally see. And I'm using it to create a skin tone. Of course, it naturally needs to get a little bit more pink up here, so I opted to add a little bit more of the pink. And now we're going to go and add a little more light now to the philtrum. A little light for the philtrum. And then we're going to throw this brush right into the red. Right into the red and into the alizarin. This is going to be our first little light for the lower lip. A little bit of white for that shape right there. Hey Rob, thanks for watching from England. Oh, thank you. We just started this thing. Just started it. Now I'm going with the dark brush, and I'm going to correct the shape for the draw. Remember, light and shadow is so important. Those of us beginners out there, light and shadow. If I've said it once, I haven't said it enough. If I've said it 1,000 times, I haven't said it enough. Light and shadow is so vital. Hey, Jeannie. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Alright, so now we're adding a mid-tone over there. Gives us a little bit of expression. That's the side of the maxilla. Or actually, that's the side of the orbicularis oris, the structure that contains the mouth. And now we're going to throw in some subtlety on the mask of the face. Then we're going to go into the small shapes of the face. Mixing right into the little thought web on the palette. Gives us a value for the philtrum. Now we're going to go in for a little more of the pink. Hey Christopher, should you get Galkit or Liquin? Liquin is like half price. Galkit is to Galkit. They're kind of the same. So if you'll save with the Liquin, then I would just get the Liquin. My favorite, of course, is Neo-Megilp. It doesn't dry quite as fast, but I do enjoy it. Alright, so now we're going to add this light plane underneath of the eye. Middle tone brush. Now we're going to put in the side plane a little bit warmer. While we have it, we're going to go with the pinkish tone for the nose. Each shape, each feature is just a series of simple shapes. But these simple shapes have to relate to one another as well as they can. I'm relating all these shapes to one another. Yep, no problem, Christopher. Now I'm going in with the dark for the nose. This is going to change the shape of the nose a little bit, simplify wherever possible. So that is going to become a little bit more simplified, yet a little bit more accurate than it was before. Now we're going to go with the light brush, and we're going to start to add a little bit for the bulb of the nose. A little light there for the bulb of the nose, giving us the leftmost position of the nostril. The nose is kind of pointy. It's not a very thick nose. It's not like my nose. My nose is round like Super Mario. And now, just for some fun, we'll throw in the highlight for the bulb of the nose, giving us a little more form for the nose. And now we're going to add a little bit of Ultramarine Blue into the white using the same brush that naturally has some skin tone on it because we used it to mix some skin tone. Now we're going to throw in some light for the placement of the sclera, the white of the eye. Using the edge of the bristle brush. Now we are into the stuff of nightmares. The sclera of the eye. But what about the rest of the details of the eye? You have to add structure and build into the structure. Stop thinking about it as a human. Think about it just as a structure. So Rob, question: if using a reference photo, do you think the artist should take the photo or avoid using photos from pixel something? I would highly suggest you take the photo reference yourself. I took the photo reference here, and that's because you want to have a natural light. You want to have just one light source. Believe me, one light source. It's very hard to find photographs online that have just one light source. Hey, Jack. So like I said, stuff of nightmares. I haven't put in the pupil or the iris, but we're getting there. And I'm staying with the big brushes as much as I can, working as abstract as I can. Absolutely fearless with this. Once you eliminate the fear, you will definitely enjoy painting much more. So now I'm going to go into the middle tone brush and we're going to mix some green Viridian into this puddle here with a little bit of Cadmium Orange. Like I said, have as big of a mixing space as you can. This mixture is pretty much as big as my torso. It's probably as wide, like a little bit wider than my ribs. So if I stand back, you can see like how much shape I have there, how much distance. So now I'm going to keep myself still a little bit further back. And normally I would have rested pinky, but I'm trying to be as free as I can. But it is a very difficult thing to do with the backhand of the brush. Those of us beginners out there, try to keep yourself as far back. Try to keep yourself as far back, and the reason is that it will help you see more shapes. It will help you see more clearly than being up close. Yep, no problem. Rob, let's see. If the painting will be for sale. Oh, if you're gonna sell the painting, it doesn't matter if you use a photograph you took or from a copyright free. Just make sure that it's a copyright free resource. And you can use whichever you want to. Alright, now same brush. Fixing the jaw yet again. Light brush. We're going to add some light on the shoulder. Let's see, you find you miss with the brush for fine details. With the fine detail brush, it is nice to have control. This is an experiment now in, I'm always experimenting, aren't I? But this is an experiment in trying to just use the bigger brushes. Eventually I might switch into the smaller brushes, but I might not. I don't know, we'll see. Now I'm using this light brush to just kind of mix into the shadow tone there, which adds a little bit of noise, which is nice noise that we want. Not like a hammer kind of noise. And we're 10 minutes under an hour, so we've gotten a lot done in an hour's time. We're going to keep working on it though, as much as possible. And I'm actually doing a practice run because I'm going to be doing a demo, like I said, on Saturday, in person, and they're only giving me an hour, so I didn't even want to take the challenge, but I'm going to do it. Luckily, I don't think too many people are going to be there because really no one in this area knows who I am. So I don't think I'll have much of a crowd there. Working with these simple shapes. Now the neck, of course, needs to come out a little bit more. We're going to have to go back into the hair. Now that gives us a little bit more grace for the neck position there. And using the same brush with a tad bit of green, we're going to throw in the eyebrow now. And we want to be as free as we possibly can with these shapes. Your aim is poor. Oh, mine is too, don't worry. This is like playing pool for me sometimes, and sometimes I'll just miss like an easy shot. Same thing with painting. But this helps train and refine your touch. And now we're going to go in with the dark Dioxazine purple. Oof, this is going to be tough. Oof, alright, that's the pupil. Pupil on the other side. Alrighty, now we're going to go into some white and some Phthalo Turquoise. I'm going to mix down here. The lead primer, it really lets the paint float on the surface really nicely. It accepts the paint better. It's less scratchy. Oof. Okay, try it again, try it again. Okay, so now we've got the highlights for the eyes in there. What did I say we were going to get into? We're going to get into the stuff around the hair. Absolutely a really fun challenge, those of us beginners out there, to work as simply as you can. Now the angle of the mouth is not correct relative to the picture, but it works with the face that we have on there, and that's all that matters, that it works with the face. Another thing you can do to check that, orbicularis, or it's the muscles around the mouth. Yes. Let's see, from Jack, I don't even paint really, just learn basics and stuff, but this looks interesting. Oh good, I'm glad. Let's see, if you like the noise, gives me an idea of the amount of pressure you're putting in your brush strokes. Oh good, good. So using a mirror will help you. I'm using the mirror and I'm like, okay, yes, the angle of the mouth is different than the reference, but that's okay, that's okay. What I see when I look through the mirror is the forehead is protruding a little bit too much for it to be believable. So I'm going to go and I'm going to adjust that. Let's see, Christopher, is there a support we can paint on or just wipe off the entire thing when done? Let's see. Like how a whiteboard works for markers. You just wipe the whole thing off, but I would keep them if I were you. Always try and keep your studies if you can. I have a bad habit of painting over things a lot, but I would definitely suggest to keep as many of your studies as you can. And if you want to do quick stuff without working on like expensive surfaces like this, then buy some cotton canvas rolls. Try to get as smooth of a cotton canvas as you can, and just cut them up and use them for your sketches. It's much cheaper. I don't really buy pre-stretched anything anymore. These are panels that are glued onto a surface, so they're a little less expensive, these linens. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the darks for the hair, and then we're going to add some of the curls for the hair, trying to keep this sketch as loose and alive as we can. And we'll see how far we get in an hour, but I will work past the hour. I'm just practicing essentially to see how fast I can do this, how efficiently I can do this. Sketches have something else to them that a finely finished painting will never have. And there's more risk involved in it, they're more daring. But they don't have the fine finesse that you will get in a painting that you work on for like a year. Let's see, circumoral refers to the areas around the mouth. I didn't know that term. Thanks for introducing that term. Alright, so now we're going to go in with the middle brush. Cadmium Red, mix right into the middle of the puddle. And now we're going to start to paint these curls. Okay, and as we do that, I'm noticing that the shadows are a little light, but I think that's okay. It's not. This dark here, that needs to get darker. I didn't even mix anything, I just, whatever was on the brush, it was dark, so I was like, okay, that'll work. I'm gonna cover it down here a little more, unlike the reference. I think that looks better to cover there. Okay. Okay, a little more light up here. We want to get some of these curls now. Red mixed into a green neutralizes itself. Using this, I can blur out some edges if I want to, allow others to remain sharper. Now this pose is very dynamic. It's very fitting for a painting like this. A little bit of green will make a shadow so that the hair is actually resting on the forehead. That long strand comes down to about there. A little bit more light. Less red will give us that kind of like shine to it. Now, not everywhere, but just in enough spaces where it fits. Now back to the dark. I'm going to mix a little bit of orange into it. And we're just about going to hit the hour now. Like I said, I'll keep painting past the hour a little bit, but this was really an experiment to see how far I can get in an hour. And this is okay. I'm not that thrilled with how far I got, but I don't think I could get this far in an hour if you asked me to do this like last month. Anima, obviously the painting's not even close. It is an hour. So that I label bullying, so I'm going to block, ban, and report you. So I have a zero tolerance policy. So anyone that says anything that is not beneficial to the stream, you'll get blocked, and then you'll get banned, and then you'll get reported. So take that as an example, everyone. I don't play games. So if you would have tried me back in 2020, I would have given you a little more slack, but not anymore. Well, that was a terrible way to end the hour. We're past an hour now. I can't block, ban, and report people in real life if I'm doing the demo in real life. But anyway, now I'm going to add more refinement to the shadow. Now I'm gonna just paint. I'm not gonna talk as much. I'm a little annoyed. So now I'm just gonna paint. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, PhD nurse. Hey, Prudence, I'm glad you like the expression. I don't know, maybe I won't do that public demo. Might not be a good idea. There was a reason why in the past I would make those pre-recorded videos and not talk, and then talk over them. Hey Brandon, not so much. I haven't tried digital painting, no. I would try it, I just don't have the software. Hey Rob, oh thank you. Hey Jane, oh thanks. What a way to spend your lunch hour. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Hey Angela, thanks. I'll be alright. I don't know. I really don't know if I want to do that demo in person. Like, I'm fine demoing for, like, my students in class, but I don't know, me and the general public, we kind of don't get along. Alright, so the thing that's the most troubling is definitely the mouth. So one thing I always tell my students in person, if you want to fix something like that, is to ghost it. So we're gonna go on a little bit longer. Hey Janice, I'm glad you like the lessons. The lessons and the streams. So I'm gonna ghost the mouth and fix it. And I'll probably keep working on this, I think. Since it is on a linen that's lead primed, I'd rather work on it longer. I'm gonna add the dark underneath the mouth. Now we're gonna add the accents. Hey Prudence, oh I'm glad. Let's fix that angle. It's a little more straight. It's on an angle, but it's a little straight, so about there. Now we're gonna add the structure for the lips. Oh yeah, another thing forgot to tell you is that it will look different if I move the camera. But the camera is there so I can paint without backing up into it or without it being in front of me. Hey Rob. Oh, I like the acronym for haters. Usually I just block them. Having anger towards everyone reaching success. That's funny. I like that. That's a good one to take a screenshot of. Hey Yakwin, I'm glad you liked the demo. So, again, back to the main topic of this whole thing about oil painting for beginners. This is a very good experiment for you. Don't show it to anyone, though, if you can avoid it. Do a study using the same type of approach. Just liberate the brush and see how far you can get just enjoying the process. Yeah, the camera angle, there's nothing I can do with that. I've got the laws of physics against me. Also the laws of the YouTube algorithm against me. But in the end of the day, what matters is the painting. And it's very hard, believe me, a portrait sketch is very hard. There's a Sargent quote, I forgot what it is, something about a portrait done in like one sitting, good luck with that. Something like that. Being able to do a portrait in a short amount of time like this is analogous to running a table. If you play pool, like a straight break and run, or maybe like a home run to like baseball or something. It's the most difficult thing you can try to do. But if you always train under the hardest circumstances, you will emerge when you put more time into it. Thanks, PhD nurse. Alright, Alizarin permanent, Cadmium Red. And now we're fixing the mouth. Then we're going to go back to the light for the face. Now a little bit of skin tone into the lips so it's not so pink. So from Rob, how do you decide whether to use direct or indirect approach, like using a grisaille? Oh, no problem. So if, for example, you're going to paint something that's really, really matte, like a cast, or I don't know, like something that's just not that colorful, like if you're going to paint like a cast, but paint it in color, like a statue, if you're going to paint a statue but paint it in color, I would probably use a grisaille because I can just easily glaze the color in there. But if I'm going to, for example, paint something very difficult, something that is like super, super difficult to paint, like like figure painting, for example, it would be safer, like that has a head and a body to it. I would use a grisaille. Anything that's like really difficult or very matte, I would use a grisaille. Christopher, is it better to paint light over dark? Yes, I would always suggest painting light over dark with wet on wet. This is wet on wet. If you're painting wet over dry, like if you're glazing, for example, which can't happen here while this is wet, then I would use wet or light over, no, dark over light. If you're glazing, wet into dry. I'm gonna fix the chin. Use the fan brush. Starting to glare a little bit on my side. That's in danger of getting too light. This is one of the more difficult parts of painting wet into wet. For some reason, the shadow shape, the reflected light, is more of a pain when you're painting wet into wet. Oh good, I'm glad you like the ghosting process that I used to fix the mistake. Okay, so now let's, like I said, let's get into more light for the face. And we'll start to build the light shapes a little more. And I always emphasize, as much as you can, to work from a live model, work from life, so that when you do studies like this, you have the experience of painting from life. You bring that into painting from the reference. And if you can't paint from a live model, if it's just too difficult, just paint a self-portrait. The best way to learn is to do a combination of master studies and self-portraits. Master studies are even harder than this because with a master study, it's already a finished painting that you're looking at. So there's much more margin for error with it. This, not so much. This could be the model's sister or whatever, cousin, it doesn't matter. But if I butcher a Rembrandt, I butcher a Rembrandt. And that's not excusable. The best thing to do if I butcher a Rembrandt, the best thing to do is to learn why it happened and learn from it. Don't just give up. Hey, PhD nurse. The mouth and eyes give all the expression to the face. That's true. Her expression is like this, kind of like, why me? Keep yourself a distance, a nice distance away. Because now that we're adding all of these subtleties, things are not going to be that obvious anymore. And that's when it starts to get difficult. We're just now getting to a part where it's going to get really difficult. And the beginning is absolutely difficult, but now it's going to be harder to pick and choose what things we want to leave in, what things we want to leave out, and why. Okay, so now looking at the angle for the eyes. The angle for the eyes was working with the mouth before, but luckily we do have the pupils pretty close. So all I gotta do is actually move the pupil down. Just basically pull this down. I don't have to ghost it. So there's several ways to move things. This one is going to be more of a projection. And don't be afraid to move things, because that's going to happen with a quick sketch like this. So it's going to grow that eye a little bit. And this will give us room for the light of the upper eyelid. Now I'll switch to a Sable. I took it as far as I could without the Sables, but if you got it, might as well use it. Now, when you rest your pinky on the painting, you might get paint on your pinky, but I don't really care if I get paint on my pinky. Okay. So now we're just moving the eye a little bit lower. Hey Rob, a painting can be described as thousands of decisions. That's true. Thousands of decisions. Done at a very quick pace or a very slow pace. You take it at your own pace. Okay, so I moved that down. Works a little bit better with the eye. With the other eye, that is. I'm going to check with this. Alright, very good, very close. Use the mirror to look at the reflection of your painting. It will help you. Always remember that you are your worst critic, unless you're me. You're your worst critic, unless you're me. And we tend to have more anxiety over our paintings, especially portrait paintings, again, for those of us beginners out there. If you think portrait is extremely difficult, you're not wrong. Portrait is extremely difficult. It's the most difficult type of painting there is. I'm not exaggerating, it is the most difficult type of painting. Which is why I think Rembrandt is probably one of the best, if not the best painter in all of history. All of art history, because he was possibly the greatest portrait painter of all time. Since portrait is the hardest thing out there, that makes him probably one of the best. If not the best. Sketching in a little bit for the eyes. I'm going to make sure I stay further away. Since we still have the green for the eyes there, I'm not going to mess with that, but I'm going to use this Sable to add the pupil back. Always remember, everyone, you are your worst critic unless you're me. Tita, I'm glad you love portraits. Janice, how do you adjust your colors when you are refining the planes on the next layer of the face? I kind of, just as you've been seeing on my palette, I know it's difficult to see what I'm doing on the palette, but I mix into a puddle. I kind of just intuitively mix into a puddle, and that tends to work. I don't really actively think about the mixture that I'm doing at the moment. I just try to let it be as natural as it can be. That's why I have this camera the way it is, so you can actually see the real thing. Now with that little palette on the side, that's not how I actually paint. That's not how I suggest you paint either. I suggest you actually have a palette. Then you can stand back and mix. So stand back and mix from a distance if you can. I'm going to move that down. Hey, Legendary Noob. It's been about an hour, 24 minutes. But don't worry, this will be here as a pre-recorded. I'm basically experimenting, seeing how much I can get done in an hour. Of course, we already went through an hour. What I found is that I just make way too many mistakes in an hour's time, which we all do. Give me one portrait painter that can make one face in an hour. I'd love to know that. That's definitely not something I recommend anyone do. I bet you Sargent could do it. I bet you Sorolla, Rembrandt. Basically all of the old masters, I'm sure they could do it. Hey, Legendary Noob. Oh, good. I'm glad you say that. The Waterhouse, John William Waterhouse. Thank you. I feel so much better now. That's what I was trying to go for. It has a John William Waterhouse kind of feel, the pose. I hate the word feel, but it has a John William Waterhouse tilt and hair and expression. Usually, if you use the word feel in how you describe art, it kind of loses a little bit of validity to it. If you just say something has a nice feel to it, that has a sort of kind of air, like the air we breathe, kind of like air of ambiguity. This is just a dry brush. Hey Rob, You know, I honestly don't think I could paint anything in an hour either. Because this, to me, is new. I haven't been able to do this ever. To try to do something like this in an hour. Back in 2020, we were doing streams for like 3 hours, I think. And that was insane. I mean, trying to do that. Thanks, Legendary Noob. I don't really know, to be honest. Like I'm showing you the basics, and 1 hour was the basics for beginners. Now we're getting more advanced. The further time goes on, the more advanced it becomes. And I understand that it is kind of difficult to see the colors that I'm mixing, but don't worry about the colors. Just trust me, the difficult thing is not the colors. The difficult thing is getting the shapes to work. Knowing what to leave in, what to put in, what to leave out, how to describe it is the hard part. Not what color that I use. A PhD. Oh yeah, the eyes. I mean, the more I look at it, there's going to be more things that I'm going to want to adjust, and we'll do them as much as I can until I gotta go. Let's see. I gotta teach at 5:30, but I still got enough time. This shape is very troubling. It's best to underdo it, but it has to be there in some sense. So I'm using the dry brush just to manipulate the edges as much as I can, but I'm gonna have to go in with the middle tone brush. There's no way to avoid it. Painting into whatever on my palette. Like I said, it's not a very it's not a very analytical thing. I'm just mixing into some section of the palette that has the relative color that I want. And there's that careful refinement that we're talking about. Hey, Legendary Noob, you can easily stare at a blank canvas for 1 hour, let alone paint a portrait. Me too. I mean, me too. It takes me a long time to figure out what on earth I'm going to paint. That's why I wasn't here on Tuesday. I didn't know what to paint. I couldn't figure it out. And then I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll do this and see how it goes. I love Nelson Shanks' sketches. I need to sketch at least on his level somehow one day. I'm trying to get there. Hey Nora. I think I already said hi. I forgot. Alright, so now... Alright, so I've got a dry brush that I'm kind of just blurring things in, so I'll put that down. Now I'm going to go with the middle brush. We're going to address this edge. This is a very precarious edge. First I'll start off with that shadow. And when you put the pressure on yourself like this, two things can happen. One, you'll just get really frustrated. Or two, you'll learn from it. And let's try to learn from it. Hey Aldo, oh good, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the live stream. This one was a little bit action-packed. Not as much as the last one, but a little action packed. It's not easy to try to do this, and for beginners, I do suggest that you. What I did in the first hour, I believe that that is a really good exercise. Getting to this point in the painting is a little bit beyond what I would suggest a beginner do, though that's totally up to you. Right now, it's all about careful refinement. Getting to this careful refinement in this amount of time is very challenging. And I'm not saying I'm doing it well. I don't know if I'm doing it well, but it is challenging. Well, thanks for watching, PhD Nurse. I'm glad it was very helpful, Legendary Noob. I'm glad you've been watching the drawing tutorials. A little bit of her teeth showing. Where are we at now? An hour and a half? Getting into the small shapes. Hey Rob. Oh, thank you. It's sketching is a very good thing to practice, but I will say the best thing to do is to study Rembrandt, study the old masters, and do a combination of that with self-portraits. You will learn so much. Now I'm strengthening the cast shadow, and we're going to start to put in the nostril. Trying to keep myself at arm's length away. Now we're going to add some alizarin to that dark. Legendary Noob. Yeah, there's more of an expression on the face than the reference. A funny thing, I didn't. If you notice the thumbnail, I mean, I might change it, but the thumbnail didn't have the reference in it. I almost didn't put the reference in because I knew what was coming. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to perfectly recreate the reference. Not having the reference would have been a better idea. Maybe I'll do that next time. But yes, there's definitely a difference between the reference, the expression in the reference, and the expression here. And it's hard for some folks to grasp the idea that it's not a one-to-one depiction. It takes a little bit of creativity to know that this is not a photograph of a face. And this is something, like I said, I aim to be able to sell. I have a bunch of these now, the 8x10s, that I want to sell. Colin, this is Michael Harding, the lead white. The rest of them are just Gamblin or Winsor and Newton. mixing just into whatever on the palette. I mean, look at those mixtures. This is pretty much wider, like I said, wider than my torso. So I do enjoy being able to have more space to think. Like I said, that little palette, I mean, look at this. Like, this is bigger than the painting itself. That little palette is useless. Like, that little palette is borderline useless to be able to work that way. And I know that you like it so you can see the mixtures, but it's just not beneficial. Thanks for the comment about the facial expressions, PhD nurse. So now I'm adding some wet paint for this form. And now I'm going to go in with the dry brush and weave it into the painting. This edge is very difficult to get wet on wet. It's easier to get wet into dry. Why is it difficult? It's difficult because it's the most soft yet firm edge. The soft yet firm edge. These edges are no joke. And this is a Turtlewood brand palette. It's a really fine palette. The only thing is it's a little on the heavier side. But for its size, and it's got a balance to it. It's a balanced palette. Hey Alder, I'm glad you love it. Now I'll use the dry brush. See, I'm kind of dry cleaning it. Every time I said dry cleaning the brush, this is what I was doing off camera. Thanks, Angela. Okay, so now there's a little more distance for the nose, but I'm not going to chase that one. That tends to always happen to me. I can easily elongate it if I want to, but shucks, I guess we will. Another dry brush, and this time we're going to use a projection. And it's not a lot that has to move. So I'm using a dry brush, projecting this down. I'm looking at this negative space right here. Do you see that? That space here, this gap, is telling me how far I need to move it down. Just a dry brush. I think it's the whole thing. I'm not sure. But like I said, it's tricky to know what to chase, what to move, what not to move. But that was something I think that was a little bit disturbing to me, so I decided to chase it. Now what I'm going to do is just push this in, the cast shadow. And I'm doing all of these projections with a dry brush. and that is going to move the bulb of the nose, as you said, the tip of the nose out a little bit there. So I'm using a dry brush to project each one of these shapes. That's why I said oil paint is so forgiving, because you can just push it with the dry brush while it's wet. And it's very friendly. It allows itself to be pushed around, unlike me. Okay, so now we're gonna have to add paint to it now. Heck, glow. I'm glad that you like to see me paint. Like I said, for beginners out there, pay attention to how much I move back. I make my decisions as I stand back. I don't make my decisions up close, and this entire time I have not been up close to the painting. And I like to let my hair down for these demos because I know if my hair is on the screen, if my hair is over here, I'm too close. So if my hair is over here, that means I'm like a foot away. I should not be a foot away. Hey Alder, so would you say masters would start painting with mid-tones, later add darker shadows? It's hard to say. I think with Velasquez, as you mentioned, he probably started with the darks first. I think with a more like a umber sketch, like a grisaille, and then painted directly onto that. But I suppose his grisaille would have been a little more finished. Hard to know, really. This is a very difficult way to draw, but it is a very good way to learn how to work with basic shapes and to maneuver paint around. That's why I say for beginners, the way this one started is a very good model for how to learn to paint. And now all of these careful adjustments are happening onto that structure that we started with. Where are we at? We're an hour 45. Still pretty good for an hour 45. We're moving things now, so we're spending maybe like a whole 30 minutes just moving things around. Now when things get too pink, I just instinctively go to a green on my palette. Okay, and now I'm standing back. Now the more subtle it gets, the more difficult these little decisions are going to become. Hey, Legendary Noob. Every time you take a break from painting, you're afraid to go back, fearing you've forgotten all your knowledge and skills. Any experience with that and how to overcome it practically? So if you're away from your painting for a while, if you're away from painting for a long time and you return to it, you're actually going to return with more energy than you have if you're painting every day. So you can actually, to some degree, everyone can improve by taking a little bit of time apart and just letting it all sink in. So know that you more than likely are actually retaining information as you're taking time away from painting because you're thinking about it in the back of your mind, and you can actually improve that way. But I'm not saying to take a break from painting all the time and then that'll make you learn. It's a balance between on and off. So the practical way to overcome it is just to tell yourself that you're just taking a little break away from painting, and then when you return, you're going to take it all in and you're going to be better. Hey, Christopher. Yeah, that's a good one. Like bodybuilding. Not that I have an experience with that, of course, but yeah, like bodybuilding, I would assume. The hard part really is if you're painting every day. If you're a full-time painter, it gets a lot harder to keep the motivation going, to keep pushing. We get comfortable, and it's even harder to push past that. What dark colors to desaturate? To desaturate colors to make them less saturated, I use the complementary colors. So green and red, blue and orange, purple and yellow. I don't use any umbers. I only use an umber to draw with. And then I quickly got rid of it. I'm going to use the dry brush to soften some edges. Yep, no problem, legendary noob. Where are we at? 2 hours. Not even 2 hours. We're 1 hour, 49 minutes. Yeah, like muscle memory. There you go. The white and red. A little bit of alizarin. Some skin tone. So lips you can get with pink and a little bit of skin tone, just like eyes you can get with blue and a little bit of skin tone in it. Now we can get into some fun stuff. Little details now. Notice how I transition to the sables. Let's see. Christopher, you said, myself, I do too much painting, like mentally exert myself too much. It's harder to get back to the easel, but accepting the fact and just starting to paint. So yes, it is good to take a little bit of time. Yeah. What I do actually, I'm a little crazy. What I do is I will go to a pool hall and I'll spend like 7 hours or like 6 hours at a pool hall just practicing and sometimes playing against people, mainly just practicing. And that helps me stay balanced with painting because, yeah, when you're doing this full time, you need a hobby. Like painting is not a hobby for me. It is like my life. So I need some kind of hobby to like keep me balanced, or else I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna just kind of go off the deep end. So playing pool is something that keeps me balanced. Have a have a hobby of some sort to balance you with your full-time painting if you're a full-time painter. Of course, if you're not a full-time painter, then painting will balance you from your profession, your career. It's important to stay balanced. It's important to keep yourself be happy with life. Do what you love. I always say these days the meaning of life is to the meaning of life is to live your life happily and leave something behind so that others can find their happiness. Live your life happily such that when you're gone, you leave something behind to help others find their happiness. Alright, so now we've got kind of like a teardrop in our eye. But that works. It's not exactly what's there, but that works. Hey, Christopher. Oh, cool. I'm glad you like the quotes. Now we're getting into so much fun stuff. These little shapes. They fit in so nicely now that we have the big shapes. And we're using sables for all of it. Hey Alder, have I seen Roberto Ferris art? No. Uh, is that an old master from 17th century or something? Hey Gene, oh thank you. I'm trying to do my part. I love painting. If I can do it every day in a way that'll help you find your happiness, then my life is complete. I knew that I loved painting. I think from the first portrait I painted, and from then I had to just keep painting. I was 17, between the age of 17 and 18. I would always draw when I was a kid, but I never really took it seriously until I was 17, 18. A PhD nurse. Let's see. Columella is the skin structure between the eye nostril. Eye nostril. Oh, cool. Well, that's the word for it. Rob, you like this person's cool. I gotta look up that the name. I'm not too familiar with modern day painters. Kind of hang out with the 17th century, but I should look into that. Thank you. Italian painter paints a lot of mythological art. Cool. Now I'm getting too close to the canvas. I gotta push myself back. The more long-term studies you do, the more proficient you will be at this stage in your sketches. Adding all of these careful shapes in very, very effortlessly. And then the more short-term studies you do, the more you'll be able to flow through the beginning stages into the middle stages. So it's nice to have a balance between the two. Short-term and long-term. For example, in my online classes, typically Wednesdays we do long-term, Saturdays now, we switch it around from time to time. We're doing short-term sketches. Legendary new. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're learning from this whole experience. Kind of a roller coaster sometimes. Um, I guess for all of us, this certainly is something that I hope is helping you out. So I'm glad that you're saying that. I'm so glad that this is helping you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes either. Especially with these sketches, we tend to be more bold and less fearful, which is a good thing. It's a very good thing to be fearless. Diablo is where I'm familiar with that name. Yeah, definitely. His drawings in particular. So if you can, definitely try to stand and paint. If you can't stand, then sit and lean back as much as you can. Think about the early 2000s song "Lean Back." You know what I'm talking about? Anyone raised in the 90s? You know the song "Lean Back." Definitely lean back. If you're sitting, of course. If you're standing, stand back. I kept standing back the whole time. Let's add a curl here. It's not there, but it needs it. A PhD nurse. You teach an oil painting class once a week. You're a nurse practitioner, doctor during 2 days a week. Then there's snow skiing. Oh wow. Alright, so you definitely keep yourself balanced. Oh well, you wouldn't catch me dead on the skis. I've never been skiing before. I'd probably fall like 1,000 times. And always leave a soft edge with the eyebrows. And yes, you want to paint the eyebrows in there, but don't let them look painted in. And the edges will help prevent it looking painted in. Like that. A soft edge. Now we'll go back and revisit the shadow. Yeah, we go back and forth, face, shadows, shadow, face. Add a little bit more depth to this. Like I said, for beginners, definitely use the method that I described to you in the beginning. And take the painting as far as you can. I do suggest that you have a combination of long-term studies and short-term studies. Those of you that have more experience, have you been painting for more than 2 years? Definitely have a balance between long-term and short-term with your paintings. I'm going to use some Neo-Megilp. I'm going to get a nice dark. Nice little sharp edge there. There should be a sharp edge over here. You gotta modulate the edges. They have to have different degrees of sharpness and softness. And that can be done with a very careful touch. Hey Lisa. Oh good, I'm glad you like the darks made with intense colors. These days I try to use pure color as much as I can to make things make my neutrals and my browns look less out of the tube. Hey, Christopher is still working on still life. No worries. I'm actually gonna make a still life video for Sunday. For my I'll upload it on Sunday for my Sunday students that I have. Remember, I'm teaching in person at the Yellow Barn School in Glen Echo, Maryland. But we will have a still life video coming up soon. Now the chin isn't exactly the same as hers, but I don't care. I like the chin. I like this story and I'm sticking with it. Make sure that your highlights aren't just a dot, that they have some structure to them. You don't have to paint everything you see just because you see it. You have to have control over what you put in and what you leave out. Hair is no exception. Knowing what to paint in with the hair, what to leave out. Even now, some considerations for the background. Where are we? We're 2 minutes. 2 hours, 8 minutes. Really trying to make a painting out of this. Trying to get better at this. Oh good, I'm glad, Christopher. And with the still life one, I'll talk a lot about form. We'll get into form, how to make things look round. It's much easier to do with a still life because we don't have to worry about likeness. A little bit of warmth. Yeah, definitely no point in being a printer. It's the artist's choice to make the painting. There you go. Adding a little bit of red here. So the background now, we're gonna do some stuff to the background. I'm telling you, we're trying to make a painting. Like once we're done with this stream, we should have a painting. Rarely have I ever even thought about doing that. It's such a scary thing. Now I see I'm definitely not ready to do a 1 hour painting demonstration in person. I think I'm going to cancel that. But I definitely see that it is possible to do it in one stream. This is no easy pose. Not at all. I chose a hard pose because I thought it was very elegant. Alright, so let's do some stuff to the background now. And I think that it can use a little bit of something or other in it because a flat background like that it ain't gonna work. So I'm gonna go with more blue up here and I'm gonna let this be more of a dark green, like a fade, a transition. You gotta think about composition. A main diagonal coming from this direction, it might benefit me to have either a dark there or a light. So I'm gonna go with the light. She's looking into the light. Maybe we can now add a story to it. And I'm painting as long as I can. I gotta, like I said, I got some time today. A little bit of Neo-Megilp. I'm gonna make a mark, stand back, test it. I don't want it to be that bright, so I'm gonna go with Ultramarine. See, I've used all of it, all of the mixing space up. This palette cup is nice because it's like a UFO shape, so I can move it around, move the palette around without worrying about spilling my cup. Try that out. That looks better. Now with the Ultramarine Blue, we're going to have a little bit of a fade. I'm working on lead oil primed linen. I bought this as just a universal primed linen, and then I primed it with lead. And of course toned it gray with oil paint. This is light years better than these panels were. There was a little bit of a scratchiness to these panels. I don't know. But the lead primer, definitely next level. And these panels, I bought them at Jerry's Artorama, not sponsored by them, but I bought like 45 of them in 3 packs, I think, or I don't know how many there were. But it came out to about like $3 a panel after I did the math. Think about it, $3 a panel and you have a lead primed linen. Of course you have to factor in the cost of your lead primer, but it's not that much. It doesn't take that much to prime a canvas. And it's just got one coat of lead. One coat of lead. Nelson Shanks would work on lead prime linens. Like I said, he's my superhero. Nelson Shanks. I hope that one day you'll see his influence in my paintings. Hey Monique, oh good, I'm glad you liked that background effect. Prola, thanks for watching from Greece. So now we have that kind of glow back there in the background. I didn't realize my square was in the way. I'm going to take my square out. Or move it. There we go. How many days to dry oil prime? I gave it about 2 weeks. They recommend about 2 weeks for the lead primer. Now we're going to add more stuff to the hair. So I'm going to go in with the darks first. Mixing all the way back here. A little bit of Neo-Megilp. Just to make sure my darks are dark enough. And we'll add some more for the curls of the hair. We're going to render out those curls. Hey, PhD nurse. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, definitely worth it. Lead primer, definitely worth it. I'm guessing as you say that you've already used it. Definitely worth it. If you can't get it, if you don't have access to it, then you can just use a regular oil primer. That'll still be better than a acrylic primer for lead paint, or for for oil paint. And I always tone my paint or my panels with oil paint anyway. I usually will never paint right onto a acrylic tone. I haven't painted on an acrylic tone with linen, I think, in years. I use it though with cotton. So a few more little curls and I think this will be about good. We're going to sign it. and I'll photograph it later, and another painting done. Another one that will hopefully be sold in the future. Let's see. Hey Christopher, you were cooking with some litharge and got scared by the lead. Yeah, cooking it might, I don't know. You mean to create the black oil? Yeah. Let's see. Nilu, you wish your cheek was more full. Okay, there you go. That's a much better way to say something. So you're totally fine. Yeah, you're totally fine. But yeah, it's gonna be different. Not gonna be perfect. But yeah, when you word things like that, I'm okay. That right there is a glare, so I've got to adjust the glare. With the fan brush. Angela, let's see. Oh, thanks, Angela. No, I told them I would do a portrait, which was my mistake. I think I still can, but I have to do a profile. A view this hard is just not happening in 1 hour. But a profile I can do, I think. Yeah, you just gave me that idea. Thanks, Angela. I think you just saved my weekend. That's good. That's what I'll do. Keep it more simple. Do a profile. Not that profiles are that much easier, but they take less time. In the past, I said they were harder because you couldn't see the other side of the face, but they're still a little bit easier. A little bit more for the hair. Some lights for the hair. Makes her hair look shiny. Throw in some red. Make it look nice and bright. Strand of hair right next to the eye. Works pretty well. And what do you say? What do you say? We blur out some edges and then we sign the thing. I'll photograph it later and I'll post it on Instagram. And we're good to go. What is that? 2 hours, 20 minutes? I think that's still pretty acceptable. Trust me, I've not been able to do things like this in the past. Not even like a month ago. I'm trying to experiment with this. All the while talking about the basics in the beginning. And then for those of you that are more experienced, how to go beyond. Because everything is on camera, every single thing. Alright, let's get a brush, sign it, photograph it, and leave it alone. Let's blur this out. It's a little bit. Okay. Hey Alder, oh thank you. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat, DM. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Can you want to see my setup? My setup, I mean, you can kind of see it. It's just a camera, an easel, and then a TV. The TV is over there. So I can see my chat. And you're looking at me up there through a webcam. But that's basically my setup. I'm going to move the camera front and center now so I can sign it and we'll be good to go. As close to front and center as I can get. Okay, so there it is without the distortion. Thanks, Alder. Monique. Thanks, Legendary Noob. Alright, so now I'm going to sign it in Dioxazine Purple mixed with Phthalo Turquoise. I'm going to sign it up here. And yes, it's going to be for sale at some point in the future, but not anytime soon. I have to create a website so I can sell these things. So thank you, DM, for the super chat. Like I showed you, my setup is not really that extravagant. So let's sign it. I'm standing right across from it. Well, as I sign it, sometimes I'm like, am I going to misspell my name? Am I going to put the wrong year? So it's just Upari 2022. ADM. Yeah, it's not very intimidating. It is, like I said, it's just whoops. I have my light, I have my easel, and then I have my computer that's like right below the TV. So it's light, easel, computer, TV that's connected to the computer, and then the webcam that's connected to well, where you can see over here. So no, not so intimidating. I'm not that much of a tech savvy person, so. A PhD nurse. Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you, thank you. Edita, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, so now is the time where I'm gonna ask if there are any last minute questions. I put the brushes down. I put the palette down. It has a nice balance on the back. This is what I mean. A balanced palette has. You see this part over here? It's got a balance. It's even signed and dated by the guy that makes them. Oh, thank you so much, DM, for another super chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, Jeannie. Oh, thank you, thank you. I try to be nice, but I'm typically not nice if I'm being like criticized or something. I try to be nice. Let's blend that out. There we go. Thank you, Neela. Nilu. Thank you, Legendary Noob. Thanks, Angela. You gotta get yourself a handheld palette. A handheld palette. And if you can stand further back, and it will help you so much. I mean, look at how much I've mixed on this thing. Like, this is pretty much like my torso. A lot of mixing. A lot of freedom. And yes, my arm gets kind of tired after a while. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everyone. And special thank you to DM. Thank you so much, DM, for the super chats. That helps me so much. Thank you so much. And yes, definitely please like the video if you enjoyed it. Remember, if you want to take your online classes, or take your, oh my god, I'm tired. If you want to take your online art education with me further, please check out my online classes on patreon.com/upariartist. My online classes start at $10 a month. That gets you access to all the pre-recorded videos. What you're seeing here is a slideshow of student artworks. And in the $10 a month, you are able to send me up to 2 images each week for a feedback video that I call the virtual classroom. And onward from the $10 a month tier, there's also Zoom tiers on top of that if you want to paint with me on Zoom. But the online classes, they start out at just $10 a month. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. I wish you the very best in all of your artwork, and I will see you on the next one.